to gain control of your retirement. Hello and welcome. I was delighted to be invited by Household Capital to host this webinar. My name's Kaye Fallick. Household Capital is an Australian-owned independent retirement funding provider formed in 2018. I'm even more delighted because Noel Whittaker is our guest, but more about that in a minute. Who am I? I'm an author. I was publisher of Your Life Choices, a website for baby boomers seeking retirement information for 20 years. I have a fortnightly radio gig on the Deb Knight Money Show. And additionally, I'm an independent journalist, so I write a lot of copy about retirement income. Some housekeeping. You can see on your screen Rhonda and Michael. We need a good team to make things happen, and Rhonda and Michael are keeping us on track. If something goes right, it's because of them. If it goes wrong, blame me. I don't mind. Let's be honest, what we're doing here is we are not giving financial advice. I do not have an Australian financial services license. What we are doing is offering information, ideas, and explanations how you can gain control of your retirement. You may ask questions during the webinar. If you want to ask one through Google Meet, please go to the Activities Centre. You can see the little group of shapes on the bottom right of your screen. And from that, if you hover your mouse over that, you can select Q&A and ask your question. If you're watching on a YouTube stream, you can ask in the chat box. We've had an awful lot of questions on reverse mortgages specifically. The number to call for detailed information is 1300 699 624. And there will be 5 winners of Noel's latest book who will be named at the end of the webinar. In the meantime, our brief is to have fun. And I think we will. We're delighted. We've had more than 3,200 registrations. I thought a few hundred would be good. This has blown everybody away. And we've received hundreds of questions, more than 600 as of half an hour ago. This reveals the need for reliable information and explanations to help you gain control. I guess the really major point that came through for me is it's important for you to know you're not alone. There's no such thing as a silly question. The simpler the question, the more we might be able to help. So today, Noel and I are here for you. We can't answer all your questions, but at the end of the webinar, there will be a follow-up email and there will be a link in that to resources. And anything we mentioned today, our trusty Rhonda is trapping for us, and that will be shared with you. So let's introduce Noel Whittaker. I'm going to be honest, I'm a fan. So I'm introducing a man who needs no introduction.
Thanks, Kaye.
But he is, as we know, a broadcaster, an author, a writer. I read his column every week. I read his Q&A. That's how I learn about how retirement income rules work. He's got a best-selling book, Retirement Made Simple, and his most recent book, Wills, Death and Taxes Made Simple, is our giveaway today. In Retirement Made Simple, however, there is a chapter on reverse mortgages. So if that's your thing and that's your area of interest, Noel's explained them in massive detail, and none of us can do justice to what he's done. So Noel, thank you. Thank you and welcome.
Pleasure.
Let's get started. We're talking about gaining control. I mean, why does this matter? And really more to the point, is it actually possible?
Look, one of the main things for retirement happiness is a sense of purpose. And when you've got a sense of purpose, you've got much better at being in control. And also your assets. You know, you should know what your superannuation's doing. You should know it's a good fund. You should understand that if you die, the government may take 17% of your super. So getting control means understanding your assets and having a sense of purpose about your personal life.
So what do you think, Noel, would be an entry point? Because I think for a lot of people, particularly people like me, and I read your column, as I said, there's such a vast amount of information and, you know, like something like downsizing legislation, your eyeballs start to rotate, don't they, when you start to get into the details. So first of all, would you have our audience look at purpose, or would you ask them to start to understand their assets and what they look like and the different rules associated with them?
Okay, now I'm not flogging books, but my retirement made simple is the perfect starting point. It explains risk and the way the age pension works and estate planning and how to work out how much you need to retire. That goes to my website with all these calculators to work out how long your money will last, compound it, the age pension. So that book on my website is your basic start for your resources. And once you discover, the more you learn, the more you will learn. But I think they're the basic starting points. I get emails every day from people with no idea about the age pension. And the common thing they get wrong is, if I withdraw money from my super, is that income? No, it's not, because your superannuation is deemed.
Mm. So maybe we'll talk about that for 1 minute. So in order to get an age pension, you are means tested. There are two halves to it. One is income and one is assets. But the point you're explaining is if you have money in super, it's listed as an asset and Centrelink automatically deems or calculates what kind of income you could receive from that super saving.
Well, based on the current deeming rates, which are very, very low, really.
Yeah.
But if you're asset tested, the deeming rates don't matter. What a lot of people don't know either is until you reach pension of wage, your superannuation need not be counted.
Yes.
I commonly hear about a guy 70, the wife's 55. If the superannuation is in her name, it doesn't count unless she starts a pension from it.
Yeah.
The moment you start a pension from your super, then it's assessable. These are little tricks, but they're important tricks.
Well, the youngest spouse rule can mean a huge difference, can't it, for the older spouse to become eligible?
Sure, and what a lot of people don't know is a one-off capital gain is also not income tested. It's taxable, the tax office, but it's not counted by Centrelink.
Well, I don't think many people do know that.
They don't know that, no.
So, Noel, given retirement for many people is a 30-year journey, let's sort of think about pre-retirement and the challenges that are facing people who are pre-retirement. Let's say you're 65 and we know age pension age is 67. What would you say to a 65-year-old, maybe 3 touch points for them to get their house in order?
Well, the better you prepare for retirement, the better it is. But there was a report today by Vanguard too many people are retiring with a mortgage.
Yeah.
So to me, the goal should be to retire mortgage free.
Yep.
I often get questions, I'm 55, 60. Should I focus on my mortgage payments or my super? Now, the super's a no-brainer. You make your superannuation payments from pre-tax dollars. It's now up to $30,000 a year.
Yep.
And your super fund should be at a higher rate than your mortgage rate.
Yeah.
So you should focus on your super with pre-tax dollars up to 30 grand a year each, and not your mortgage.
Yeah. Okay. What else would you be doing as a 65-year-old? I mean, something that I often talk about is the fact that only about 40% of Australians open their super statement every year. So they're in a super fund.
Yes.
And they're not checking it.
80% of Australians are disengaged.
Yeah.
But if a person's 65 now and they've got 800,000 in super, just by working 5 more years, they get to $1.2 million. So a major factor is, can I work a bit longer? And working is good for you, and it can really boost your money.
Yeah.
You know your superannuation will grow, but also you've got less money, you've got more money to spend because you've got your income.
Yeah.
It also makes for a happier family, I think. Sometimes.
When the husband goes to work or the wife goes to work.
Out of the house.
The old twice the husband, half the income. My mother had that magnet on her fridge.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not sure if she meant it or not. So let's talk about FORO, which is fear of running out, which I'm saying is a thing. I mean, when you're 66 or 72 or whatever, to a large extent, your die is cast. Yes, there are things you can do, but what would you say to people who are really quite stressed at the idea of their money not lasting?
Well, you first need to do a budget and work out exactly what you're going to spend. That's the first step. If you haven't retired yet, you would then adjust the budget for work expenses that you don't need. Most people like to travel early in retirement. So put what's on your bucket list on there as well. Because as you get older, you will travel less and drink less because you can't do it anymore. You know, so it's important to, I think, get those things early. Bear in mind also that if you're a couple, it's highly likely at one stage, one will be caring for the other one. So make sure your house is the kind of house that works if one partner needs a carer.
So, Noel, money spent on the house really is improving your asset anyway, isn't it?
Absolutely, but you just need to watch that you don't have a house that's going to send you broke. So there's always the decision, do I downsize or stay in the house? And I think there are two very different choices. But you don't want to be living in a house that's going to be requiring increasing maintenance as the years go by.
Yeah. Interestingly, the research I've seen over time is, you know, around 85% of people who are surveyed often say, they'll carry me out in a box, I want to stay in my own community and so on. But I think you're pointing out that your house must suit your needs and must be affordable.
Yes, I mean, most people want to stay in their own little village, basically, and they know their neighbours.
Yeah.
And to change houses costs $100,000 at least, and what you change to mightn't be as good as what you've got. So I think if you can stay in your house, it's good for most people.
Yeah. So, Noel, there's also the sense that people at retirement age can feel that they don't have enough and feel trapped, or maybe even a sense of guilt that they should have saved more, they should have spent less, they should have this, that, and the other. My point of view is it's actually never too late to fully understand where you're at with your assets, with your income capacity, as you say, how much it costs you to live, you know, the real facts.
Yeah.
And to try and seize back control through knowledge. Do you have a point of view on that?
Look, it's very clear the government, the governments of all parties feel the major problem is people are not spending as much as they should be because they're frightened of running out.
Mm.
And as such, they leave themselves with a much more austere lifestyle than they could have if they spent a bit. They also expect you to use the equity in your house as part of your living expenses. So, you know, they talk about the super and the pension and what's in your house as equity. And if you can draw that, why waste it?
So this is a beautiful segue to the different aspects of funding retirement. Now, often in policy terms at a high level, the OECD, the World Bank and so on talk quite grandiosely about 3 pillars of retirement. For ordinary people, that can be hard to understand. I talk about 5 levers: the age pension, super, work, which is often overlooked, and you've given us a heads up there. Private savings and investments, which are hard to quantify, so difficult to talk to that one, but also the wealth in your home. And I think the interesting thing is the median super at retirement age for a male is around $214,000.
Which is very small, very small.
Very low.
Yeah,
for a female, no surprises, no. 201,000. So if I go, okay, so that's about 207,000. The median market value for an Australian home, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, is 934,000, which is 4.5 times the super of people going into retirement right now. So I just wanted to share those numbers to get some context. Do you think the role of the home has been understated up till now?
Yes, I do. And really, you've got 2 choices. You either sell your house and downsize, and that has a cost of at least $150,000 in changeover costs.
Yeah.
And the danger is that she'll convert an exempt asset, your house, into maybe $600,000 of cash and lose most of your pension.
Mm.
That's the downside. That's the downside of downsizing.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can stay in your house as long as it's suitable, and take out a reverse mortgage. Now, if you've got $1 million house, you've got a $100,000 reverse mortgage. That's never going to grow. The house will be, the value in the house will be growing quicker than the reverse mortgage.
Mm. I saw a Q&A you did on this, and you explained it beautifully. Could you, am I being unfair if I ask you to give us a top of head example for a $900,000 house? How would that work?
Well, if this is off the cuff, right?
Very. Is it unfair?
If this is my home and I mortgage that much of it, in 8 years, the loan's there, the house is up here.
Yeah.
So the equity in your home will be growing faster than the difference between the loan, between the debt and the home.
Yeah.
You know, so as long as the later the better is good. And secondly, the smaller the loan to the property value, I mean, why not do it? I think.
I think the other thing that's happened across the years, so probably you and I have both been around long enough to know the old days when
The good old days, Kaye, the good old days, when you could say
But,
what you liked.
yeah, but yeah, that's probably true too. You could
It's
make
the truth
jokes.
for sure.
You
Right.
wouldn't get into trouble.
And you could find a bank branch and you could find an ATM.
Yeah,
The
you
good
could
old
find
days, Kaye.
a person to answer your call too.
Yes.
I think something that's happened and I haven't got the year that this came into effect, but you may know, the no negative equity guarantee is a big deal, isn't it, when we're talking about accessing wealth in your home?
Yes, there was. I mean, I think it's about 8 or 9 years, I don't know. But
Mm,
basically, you can never own more than your house is worth.
yeah. So
And you never should
people,
anyway. I mean, you should never do a deal where your debt's going to grow more than your house.
but it's good to know there's something in place
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
it ensures that won't happen. I think, governments come and go, but that piece of legislation I think was really important.
Yes, but also I think it's important that by taking out a reverse mortgage, you're spending money that your family's not going to get. Now, if the family could just pay the interest on the mortgage, which might be possible, that's never going to grow. So you've got a house growing bigger and bigger, and the debt's stable. So I think it's very good for the family to pay the interest if they're capable of doing it.
And there's lots of ways that people can manage such a loan.
Yes.
And I doubt that, and it's probably not appropriate for us to dig deep into that now, but there's certainly some flexibility within the way those loans work. So, I mean, we have had literally hundreds of questions, I'd say 300 plus on this subject. So I guess the other thing is, back in the day, I can say this to you because I'm a Victorian and you're a Queenslander.
That's right.
Back in the day, what did Victorians do when they retired? They sold up, they went to the Sunshine State, and life would be perfect.
Exactly.
However, it probably is perfect for people who already live there. But what often happened was then the grandchildren arrived, or then one of the couple passed away, or whatever. And they realised maybe they would rather be back where they had been in their own community, aging amongst their own tribe, in touch with the grandchildren, not in a high rise, but on ground, running and playing. Do you have a point of view about people kind of considering where they're living and how to plan ahead? What's your take?
The 4 retirement pillars to keep you happy and healthy are exercise, diet, a sense of purpose, and a social network. And if you move to a different state, it is very hard to re-establish a social network. Very difficult. So your social network is critical, especially when one person dies.
Yeah. Okay, we've set the scene, I think, unless there's anything else you want to add before we turn to the questions we've been asked today.
Well, I think it's important to enjoy your life. I mean, a lot of reverse mortgages are to buy your last car. That's a good economic decision. And secondly, maybe a new kitchen, repairs and things. By spending that money on doing up your house, it doesn't affect your pension. And secondly, you put more value in your house and much more fun for yourself.
Well, also, I think sort of at certain stages of your life, people in a rush renovate in order to sell. And when they've renovated or refurbished or however modest, they go, oh, I'd like to live here now. It's beautiful.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm doing that right now.
Do it early so you've got longer to enjoy it. Absolutely.
Yeah, to enjoy your own home, to live well at home is one of the true privileges. And living in Australia, a lot of us have the opportunity to do that. And I think it's important also to acknowledge around 15% of people in retirement are renting
Yes.
or do not own their own home. You know, they might
Yes.
be living with family. And I think it's super important to acknowledge that if those people are on a full age pension, it can be really tight, can't it?
It's very hard to exist on a single pension and pay rent. To me,
Mm.
the major goal should be have a house and debt free and in retirement with your mortgage paid off. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So for pre-retirees, and also people who are facing a separation, it's if you can do what you can do to keep that roof over your head that you're in control of, it's probably going to stand you in good stead later on.
Absolutely.
Okay, enough for our very interesting chat. I found it interesting.
Me too.
It's really time to let our audience do the talking. So, as I said, we got more than 600 questions before we went to air. And the first question comes from Diane. And again, Noel, I really feel that you're the most appropriate person to answer this. It's about retirement funding. It's about projecting. And at one level, it's simple. But another level, because every retirement is different, it's quite difficult. So Diane asks, how long will my money be likely to last?
How long your money lasts depends basically on the rate of return you get. And the rate of return depends on how you feel about your superannuation. I mean, some people are so terrified they stay in capital stable and they should be imbalanced. So the major factor that determines how long your money will last is the rate of return, which is why you should be maximising it. It should be a major focus.
So
and also, of course, if you can also add with some part-time work is great as well. You know.
To just explain slightly more for Diane, the rate of return for a lot of people with money in super, so not talking private savings so much, but
No.
if your money's in super, you actually, if you want control, can look at your settings, because a lot of people are defaulted into
Sure.
a conservative setting.
Exactly.
Do you mind talking a little about that? Because I think you'll explain that really well for us.
Well, the good funds in the last 10 years have averaged about 7.5 to 8%. Capital stable is about 4%.
Mm.
Now, if you've got $1 million in super and you're 65, at 4%, you're out of money at 85. At 8%, you get to 100. You know, so, and you should be doing this as young as you can, because also the higher return you can achieve on your super, the more money you'll have when you do retire.
Noel, I feel you're going to talk about compounding. Would you do
Compounding.
that?
Okay, here's my favourite story.
I love it.
You are 60 years of age with $500,000 in super. If you can work 5 more years to 65, it becomes $800,000. And if you can go to age 70, it's 1.2 million. Now, if you're a couple, imagine you double those numbers for a couple.
So, in simple terms, compounding, I've got today $100 and I might want to pull it out and buy one shoe, because I doubt that'll buy me two. I've got 100. I want to spend it. But if I leave it in my super, within 12 months, I probably will have 107, 110.
108,000. But then but then the year after, you're getting earnings on your earnings.
Yeah.
I told the story in Making Money Made Simple about the lily in the pond. If a lily in a pond starts as a tiny speck and doubles every day, how long to go from quarter full to full? It's 2 days. Quarter to half on the 9th and half to full on the 10th.
Yeah.
So it's achieved 3/4 of its growth in the last 20% of the time. So if that 10 days is your portfolio life and it's shortened to 8 days, you're missing out on 3/4 of what you could have had.
Yeah.
Because
So
compounding goes faster and faster and faster.
So, in understanding your funding and investing over the long haul, normally would give people a sense of comfort and a degree more control. But I come back to reading your super fund statement and comparing it to last year and seeing the growth in action.
Sure. And also I noticed that some older people have unnecessary insurance in their superannuation fund. I mean, it depends on the net return. Fees are a cost. Insurance is a cost. You don't want any unnecessary costs on that superannuation fund statement.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. I actually shared that with one of our relatives that it did they want it. Okay, moving on. Doug has asked a question about really about managing money when you're hitting retirement. How much money do I need for a comfortable retirement? And Doug sounds a bit like you, Noel. I like the odd overseas trip. What have you got for Doug?
Well, he's got to do a budget. As I said before, how long your money lasts, how much you need depends on the rate of return. And if you're a couple and you can both work for a while, it makes a huge difference. Obviously, if you're single, you can't do that. But by focusing on that rate of return and starting younger, but also bear in mind that, I mean, the rate inflation depends on economic conditions. It depends if you've got to help your kids. There's a lot of variables in retirement. There's your health.
The bank of mum and dad, Noel.
Bank of
Where
mum and
would
dad,
we
I know.
start?
You know, we've always taken the view that you give with a warm hand. You know, you're better off to give with a warm hand and let them all cure up at the funeral when you die. That's our goal.
I think it's nice to see love in action.
Yes.
And if you have and I've had a lot of questions around this, if you have the capacity to maybe pay for a holiday for the grandkids, or these are the kind of things that make life worth living after 60. It's being with family, celebrating.
It's the best memories we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 13 grandkids.
Oh, you're showing off.
It's not my fault. and the best memories are all together, maybe on the beach or something simple like a game of beach cricket, a beach barbecue.
Beautiful.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Simple pleasures, seriously.
Yeah. So, you know, it's also for me, if you can manage your money and live, as Doug calls it, a comfortable retirement, it's buying a bunch of roses, you know? It's tiny treats as well, that we're all human, maybe affording to have a pet, which makes your life so much better from my perspective.
Absolutely, of course, yes.
Okay.
It gets down to it's the simple pleasures, really. It really is.
Well, if you've got your health, that's a head start. Yeah. Steve has asked along these lines, but slightly different. How long is a piece of string? I hear too many conflicting theories on how to work out how much I need in retirement. Okay, we've covered the fact you need a budget. How do I start to do the sums? My age is 64 and I'm 3 years from retirement. I'm just wondering if Steve is looking at retirement at 67, age pension age. I wonder if he was to work out his likely pension, Noel, should he try and live on the mix of pension and super or whatever, should he look at that as a budget and test it out?
But also, yes, but as your assets diminish, your pension goes up.
Mm,
And there's a retirement calculator on my website, and you can just enter in how much you've got, how much you'll spend, but then you've got to factor in the earning rate and the inflation rate.
And does the calculator do that?
Well, you've got to enter a lump sum, an earning rate and an inflation rate, and then how much you want to draw.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it does it as long as you nominate.
You've got to do the assumptions, yes.
Okay, great. So that is a resource that will be made available to everybody who's watching us or who registered today. So I'm going to
go to my website. Just go to the website, sure.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, now turning back to the home and equity in the home as one of the levers of retirement living and income. We had a question from Patsy May: with a reverse mortgage, can you explain how the interest works? So I went to the head of lending at Household Capital. I'm an independent commentator, so I am reading the answer from the head of lending, and that is Patsy May. Interest is generally repaid at the end of the loan when it's discharged, so it does compound over time. The longer the term, obviously, the more it compounds. However, customers can elect to pay interest each month in return for a discounted interest rate. Complexity, yes. You would need to be in touch to find out more. Customers can also make repayments of interest plus principal anytime without a penalty. Customers generally remain in control of how they are charged. There's also the flexibility of accessing this money from their home as a lump sum or as an income stream. And that has an effect on how interest is compounded. So in fact, you do actually need to seek this information in terms of your own set of conditions. We've also had Arnold ask a question, and he says, I have a small mortgage on my apartment. Can I still get a reverse mortgage? Again, head of lending at Household Capital has provided this answer. They have told me in providing the answer that since the first recent Reserve Bank interest rate increase, what they call debt consolidation inquiries have doubled. So people are getting concerned with paying higher and higher amounts. The answer from Household Capital is more and more Australians are retiring with a traditional mortgage in place, one that has to be serviced either principal plus interest or interest only. Because of the significant rise in interest rates, which means growing monthly repayments and cost of living pressures, which you alluded to previously, Noel, many retirees finding it difficult to service the existing loans. Household Capital gets applications for funding to pay out existing mortgages quite a lot. And the way it works is Household Capital must become the first mortgagee, and the applicant, if they have that existing mortgage or caveat on title, must remove that, so the debt must be paid out with the monies loaned on the existing mortgage, which then makes Household Capital the first mortgagee. If that sounds complicated, I would urge you to phone the number we shared before or email in a question so that you can speak properly to someone who is qualified to answer the question. That was a reply that I read out. Okay.
It makes sense anyway. The answer makes sense.
I hope so, Noel, because sometimes you feel there's a lot of words there, and I hope people feel comfortable to say, what was that woman talking about? I'm going to get in touch.
Well, you wouldn't want a double mortgage, that's the point.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
what household capital would take out the first mortgage and you've got one mortgage and no mortgage payments?
Yeah.
That's
the comfort in retirement.
Sure.
Okay, one more question. Sarah says, I am concerned about my assets after I pass away, but I can't afford to overpay a lawyer to manage my affairs. Is there an affordable way to create a reliable will? Noel's written the book. We know this. But Noel, have you got some kind of answer for Sarah? Because she's not the only one who's asked this kind of question.
Look, there are certain assets that aren't passed in terms of the will. And the main one is the home if it's in joint tenants. It'll be automatically to the surviving owner. But I think it's important. Look, you need some sort of a will to get probate. I know plenty of law firms. So you walk down the street, cheap will, $450 or something. Yeah, you can get a cheap will for $200 or $300 or $400. It's all you need if your affairs are simple. But the main thing is to review your will, because most people don't review the will, and people's circumstances change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps also to share with family, so there aren't surprises along the way.
Sure. And if you prepay your funeral, tell your family, the last thing you want is, as the funeral comes out of the church, to find out that it's the wrong funeral parlour. Because someone wrote to me saying, Mum died, the house was full of paperwork and all the books were full of banknotes, and it's so much fun going through Mum's paperwork, you know.
My daughter said to me, we have to do funeral gardening so that the house, and you can see behind me, good luck with that. But you know, it's, I think it's a courtesy. Now we've run out of time. We can't answer more questions now, but we will be in touch via email, or Household Capital will be in touch via email to keep the conversation going. We're giving away 5 copies of Noel's book on wills, death, taxes, and everything you need to know. Noel, are you happy? Because you are personally signing and posting these books.
I'll sign them and post them, and if they've already got the wills book, I'll give them another book.
Okay, and you're putting $10 inside, did you say?
What's
Joking.
I'll sign them.
Would you?
So the lucky winners, Diane is number 1. It's Diane and Doug and Steve and Patsy May and Arnold. So Diane, Doug, Steve, Patsy May and Arnold will all get an autograph book posted. If you don't want the wills book, tell me what you want.
Fabulous. And looking at time, this is a big thank you to Noel. People who are on screen can click one of the emojis and let him know that there's a lot of love coming through. So I really can't thank you enough, Noel. You are the guru, and we know this. To our audience, thank you for attending. The numbers have been great. On July 18, we are having another webinar, which is retirement affordability, how to work out what you need in retirement. We've had the questions. What are the best guides to spending for different retiree ages and stages? And given cost of living pressures, we think this is really going to hit the spot. Meanwhile, yes, you'll get an email which will send you to the Household Capital Knowledge Centre. We have not given financial advice today. We have given general information.
Good common sense advice, I suggest.
Common sense. Well,
so we talked about common sense, yes.
Yeah, I would like to think so. Or we've sparked people to go and look at this or do that. People who want more information on using wealth in their home can call Household Capital on 1300 699 624 and get obligation-free information. I've had a lot of fun today. Noel, I hope you have.
It was great fun, Kaye. Great.